welcome to Episode 3 of Under the Radar. I am your host, Sammy Bovitz. This week, we've got 3 teams that I think are either on the rise or these teams are just incredible contenders that people don't really talk about as much. Of course, with the Trailblazers, who I'll talk about in a second, the Warriors, of course, are dominating over the entire NBA, and the Warriors' effect, I think, has been discussed over the last couple of episodes, but all 3 of these teams are teams that I think are, under the radar, not just because of where they are and how they play, but because there are so many great contenders in every single one of the 3 leagues that I've chosen to cover. And because of that, I think that these teams are very just underrated in terms of their talent and how people are underestimating them. Mostly like how I talked about the Oakland Athletics last week. Sorry, nobody calls them the Athletics, the Oakland A's, sorry. But with that, I think we should get right into it. We are going to start with the Portland Trailblazers, who, the Portland Trailblazers have had special interest for me because last year, I'm not a big shopping guy, so me and my family, we decided, what the heck, let's go to the local basketball game, and we decided to go to the Brooklyn Nets game. And their opponent that day was the Portland Trailblazers. And while they're not quite the elite team of any sort, I noticed something about how they built their offense. And as some of you may know already, going into this episode, the Portland Trailblazers have 2 main stars, Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. That's their guard duo, possibly one of the best, if not the best, in the entire league. I mean, you look at the Splash Brothers, look at the League of Lows, a lot of those guys, but Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum are definitely up there. But what I noticed was, and I kept track of this because I started noticing it very early on. There was almost no point. I thought no point during the course of that 60-minute game where both Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum were on the floor. And what they did is they treated Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum as 2 score-first point guards, which basically meant that if both of them are on the floor, the team is amazingly dangerous. But if one of them has to take a rest for a little while, the other guy takes on the mantle of the point guard and the runner of the offense and the main scorer. And while this does not work as much against teams like the Warriors, the Celtics, who are just playing too good, when they're playing pretty much anyone else other than the elite of the elite, the Portland Trailblazers can win a lot of games. And people noticed this, although there was no results because they didn't have somebody to distract from those 2 guys. And that changed when a guy by the name of Yusuf Nurkic was acquired. He's from Bosnia. His nicknames are the Bosnian Beast, the Bosnian Bear, whatever. He is 7 foot, 280 pounds, and a center, and besides those 2 guys, the most valuable player in the Portland Trailblazers because he distracts from those 2 guys as a dominating inside presence. He was drafted 16th overall in NBA draft by the Chicago Bulls in 2014. He was on the All-Rookie team in 2014-15. This is his 5th year, I believe, in the NBA. And Yusuf Nurkic has been amazing in his role because he got traded to the Portland Trailblazers and people noticed something changing immediately, which was Yusuf Nurkic became the inside guy that the Portland Trailblazers needed to provide for their offense because Yusuf Nurkic was enough of a threat that people would let either Lillard, McCollum, or Nurkic get open. Because think about it. If you double team Lillard, McCollum or Nurkic is open. If you double team McCollum, Lillard or Nurkic is open. If you double team Nurkic, both of those guards are open. So Yusuf Nurkic creates a very, very valuable third option that makes the whole offense go. And last year it showed. He played in 79 of the 82 games that the Portland Trailblazers had last year. Started all 79 of the games he played in. He had 50%. He was 50% from the field. Didn't attempt a single 3-point shot. That's the job of the guards. And of course, he got it on the free throw line as well with a respectable 63%. Probably better than I would ever do. Got 2.4 offensive rebounds, 6.6 offensive rebounds per game. Dished 2 assists per game, which is remarkable for a center. Got about 1.5 blocks per game. He He scored 14.3 points per game. Again, a very solid third option behind C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard. Folks, Damian Lillard is a very interesting guy. Damian Lillard, he actually went to Oakland High School in Oakland, California. So it must kind of be amazing, but also kind of hurt to see the Warriors dominate this way without him. He's been a career trailblazer. Was drafted 6th overall in the 2012 NBA draft. And let me tell you about the 2012 NBA draft, because I think it's an underrated draft class, just because it came before that 2013 abomination that I told you guys about in the last episode. Anthony Davis, of course, was very worthy, and he got selected by the New Orleans Hornets at the time, 1st overall. Next was Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who has become a humongous bust and drafted by, well, there you go, the Charlotte Bobcats, who are now the Hornets. Drafted 3rd overall was another very good shooting guard, and Bradley Beal with the Washington Wizards, Deion Waiters, and then Thomas Robinson, and then Damian Lillard drafted 6th, just ahead of 3 more very good guys, Harrison Barnes, Dunker, and pretty much nothing else, Terrence Ross, and dominant center Andre Drummond, and looking down the line, you look at number 12, Jeremy Lamb, key piece of the trade that brought James Harden to Houston for some reason. Draymond Green, of course, 35th overall. Jay Crowder, 34th, just ahead of him. Chris Middleton, 39th. I talked about him a lot last episode. Kylo Quinn, 49th. Kent Bazemore, Jermaine Green, a lot of notable undrafted players. But my point is, Damian Lillard was not only drafted behind a bunch of good players, he was also drafted ahead of a bunch of good ones. And you know what? He's proved why he was drafted 6th overall. He's been the number 1 guy for the Portland Trailblazers for a long time. Although C.J. McCollum, I love him. Damian Lillard, the number 1 guy, scored 26.9 points per game last year. Played in 73 games, started in all of them. 43% from the field, 36% from the 3-point line, 50% from all 2-point shots, 91%, a sparkling 91% from the free throw line, 91.6, sorry, and 6.6 assists per game. So this guy is very interesting. And then C.J. McCollum, who I think who is actually my favorite player on the Portland Trailblazers. First of all, fun fact about C.J. McCollum: he on the side would like to be a journalist. That's what he likes to do. When he's playing. So he's done some stuff for the Players Tribune before, which is, by the way, amazing. You should all check it out. He's done a lot of interesting stuff. CJ, by the way, in case you're wondering, stands for Christian James. He played in his high school was Glen Oak in Canton, Ohio. By the way, Canton, Ohio is normally a NFL town because the Football Hall of Fame is there. Again, Ohio, so it was kind of hurt to not be on the Cavs while the Cavs are resurgent. He's been in the NBA for a while. Selected 10th in the 2013 NBA draft. So 2 solid picks by the Trailblazers, by the way, resulted in that 1-2 punch. He's last year he played in 81 games, started all 81 of those. 44% from the field, 39% from the 3-point line. I mean, he's been better than Damian Lillard has. 836 from the 3-point line. From the free throw line, sorry. 21.4 points per game. Again, an amazing second option. And I think that kind of reflects how they're all 20 points per game, how they're all 15 points, 20 points, 25 points per game scorers. I think that kind of reflects the system that the Portland Trailblazers have established, which is one of those 3 guys has to be on the floor at all times, but at least one of those 2 guards has to be on the floor, because any one of those guys can have a very, very good night, and they've established a very good system around them. The one thing that I think is interesting is their power forward is Al-Farouq Aminu, who who was a very, very interesting player going into the draft because he was a very interesting player, highly regarded on 2010 NBA draft boards, and Al-Farouq Aminu was drafted higher than some players, and he's become infamous because he's been a bust. Well, not quite a bust, but he's been a serviceable guy, not quite worth the 8th overall slot he got, just 3 spots after DeMarcus Cousins. But here's the thing. Al-Farouq Aminu was drafted 8th overall, drafted 9th and 10th, respectively, were Gordon Hayward and Paul George. So, it's kind of a lot to live up to when you're drafted ahead of both of those guys who become elite players. That's very interesting. And I think that's honestly crazy because if Al-Farouq Aminu all of a sudden, and I'm not saying he will, I'm saying if he all of a sudden regains the potential he has, and he's been a good player, just not a great one. If he can become a dominant power forward, like he was in college or whatever, then you got Damian Lillard, T.J. McCollum, Nurkic, and Farouq Aminu, and just Aminu. It's Al-Farouq. It's Al-Farouq is his first name. Aminu is his last name. That's kind of confusing. Sorry about that. And then their small forward is Evan Turner, who's also interesting. I believe. So Evan Turner, he's an interesting guy because he's a good wing player, just not a great one. But here's the thing. Mr. Turner was in that 2016 free agent class that was highlighted by one Mr. Kevin Durant, I believe. Yes, by Kevin Durant, and LeBron James could have been with them too, but Kevin Durant was the real prize in that class. But here's the thing. Once teams missed out on KD, and because of there was this new CBA in 2016, the teams were flush with cash, so they overpaid all these guys. Sure, Evan Turner was drafted 2nd overall, and maybe hasn't filled his true potential, but he signed a 4-year, $70 million deal in 2016 because of this, and he really hasn't. He's not done a spectacular job. I wouldn't say. I feel like these guys. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to find his stats. Give me a moment. Evan Turner, man, I don't know. He has done it. He was actually pretty respectable last year. He averaged 8 points per game. This guy was drafted the first year of his contract with Portland. He had 9 points per game. And what I find unbelievable about this is because in Philadelphia he was drafted, 2nd overall, 7.2, 9.4, and then 13.3, which is actually pretty good. And his season when he was at Philadelphia and then eventually Indiana, 14 points per game. A respectable 9.5 and 10.5 his last 2 years in Boston. He comes to Portland, 9.0 and 8.2 points per game in his prime, 2nd overall. But what's even crazier is that he was offered this 4-year, $70 million contract. And I mean, I think that's kind of a bad thing for the Trailblazers because you're looking at their team, and those 3 guys are the key to keeping them in contention. But can they stay in contention is the main question. And that's what brings me to want to talk about the Western Conference. Because the Western Conference is so unfairly stacked as opposed to the East. The first thing I want to talk about is that one of the teams in it is the Lakers. And I know the Lakers, I'm from LA, they're a big team, whatever. But the thing is, the Trailblazers will get a lot of national exposure, and that's why I wanted to have them on this show at some point in the next month, because the Trailblazers' home opener of this season, actually, will be against the Lakers led by one Mr. LeBron James, who, by the way, is as under the radar as over the radar, I guess, as you can possibly imagine. You know, the LA Lakers, LeBron, Lonzo, I guess, Brandon Ingram, this JaVale McGee, all their players are just high profile in their own way, for better or for worse. So, that's one thing I want to see, because if the Trailblazers can do something and keep it close, or maybe even win against LeBron James and the Lakers, that will say first of all, the Lakers, that will knock them off their perch a little bit. They won 35 games last season. They all of a sudden think they're elite with LeBron. Maybe they are, but this is their first game. So, and obviously it's not the test that they'll get when they face the Rockets at home for their second game of the year. But it's certainly a test and something that the Lakers can't take lightly. These guys will come at you in ways that you haven't seen before, and I'm not sure Lonzo Ball and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope can guard Lillard and McCollum, and I'm not sure JaVale McGee can guard the 7-foot, 280-pound Jusuf Nurkic. Man, I gotta pronounce his name right. So I'm looking at the Western Conference, and some teams are already jumping out as me as future under the radar teams. Dallas Mavericks, who are not that good, Denver Nuggets, who are okay, probably on the same level. But then you look at all these teams: the Warriors, the Rockets, I guess the Lakers. I would have said the Timberwolves in the past, but who knows with them now. The Pelicans are good. The Grizzlies are always low-key good. The Thunder are still out there. You got the Spurs, obviously, the Utah Jazz. So it's a very, very good conference. And if I'm just gonna say, the good teams in the Western Conference, in my opinion, are the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Rockets, the Lakers. Sorry, Clippers, I can't say you're good yet. The Grizzlies, the Timberwolves, the Pelicans, the Thunder, the Trailblazers, the Spurs, and the Jazz. So there's 11 good teams in the Western Conference and 8 good spots. Because the 5 bad teams are the Suns, the Kings, the Clippers, the Mavericks, and I guess. Well, I don't want to say that. I don't want to be too premature. The 4 teams, sorry, and I don't want to be too premature because you look at the Timberwolves. Can the Timberwolves be good? Because we're all wondering right now. Because this episode, guys, is September 23rd, 2018. So we're all wondering about one thing: where is Jimmy Butler gonna go? And if Jimmy Butler goes to the East, then that makes things a little less interesting in the West. But if he goes to a contender that's not quite good yet, who knows? Maybe the Trailblazers pick him up. Maybe the Nuggets. Maybe the Clippers. Maybe he stays with the Timberwolves. Maybe he goes to the Pelicans. He goes to the Thunder. A team like that is good but not quite great yet. If they add him in the Western Conference, then I'm going to be so excited for everything the Western Conference has to offer this year. I mean, honestly, this Western Conference is so good, and I'm really excited to see how it's all going to shake out. But the Portland Trailblazers, guys, with all this top heaviness, I think they can get in. I mean, I think they can sneak their way into the playoffs, because you look at their backups are okay, like Mo Harkless, Seth Curry. They have some okay backups and good and okay depth. And really, that system of Lillard, McCollum, if they can Lillard and McCollum other teams that if they can Lillard and McCollum other teams to death, then they could do very well. I mean, they were 49-33 last year. 49-33, guys. And I think that honestly, if the Trailblazers could do as well as they did last year, when, by the way, they finished, this is very low-key, guys, they finished, wait for it, third. They finished third in the Western Conference, behind only the Rockets and the Warriors. They only had 9 less wins this year than the last year than the Golden State Warriors. They won more games than the Thunder, than the Jazz, than the Pelicans, than the Spurs, than the Timberwolves, than the Nuggets, than the Clippers, than the Lakers, than the Kings, than the Mavericks, than the Grizzlies, than the Suns. They were up over 12 teams. And, by the way, they would have had one more games this year. They won more games in the East last year than teams like the Heat, the Bucks, the Wizards, the Pistons, the Hornets, the Knicks, the Nets, the Bulls, Magic, the Hawks. They actually would have been seeded at 6th in the East. Let me put it this way: if the Trailblazers were in the East, they would have knocked the Washington Wizards with John Wall and Bradley Beal and company out of the playoffs, and they would have put Giannis Antetokounmpo in the 8th seed. And the Trailblazers were the 3rd best team in the Western Conference behind two super teams, the Rockets and the Warriors. And guess what? They had more time to mature. If they can ride a relatively, I mean, their division is not so great, but if they can if they can beat all those easy teams again, we can see a very good Portland Trailblazers team this year. Again, possibly a third place finish. I'm seeing ceiling, by some miracle, possibly Western Conference Finals. But I won't say any further than that, because that will, other than that, draw some backlash. But of course, at the very, very most, which would be ridiculous, but if they make it to the Western Conference Finals, then they will have realized their full potential. And with that, I'd like to move on to our second team. Oh, by the way, before I do that, I forgot to mention, some people commented in the last episode that the audio was a little shaky. I'm sorry about that. I was working on that before this episode, so hopefully it's better. I can't actually hear myself through these headphones, so I'm hoping that it's better. But, with that, I just want to quickly move on from that and transition to the Oakland, soon-to-be, Las Vegas Raiders. And the first guy I want to discuss is Beast Mode, Mr. Skittles. I want to talk about Marshawn Lynch. He was an amazing, amazing running back. Everybody's still talking about that whole Super Bowl 49 controversy, and they should have handed it off to Lynch. That only would have happened if the guy that people wanted to hand it off to was an elite guy, and that's exactly who he was. Marshawn Lynch is an incredible talent, was an incredible talent with the Seahawks and the Buffalo Bills, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but he was on Buffalo for a portion of his career, a few years, actually. And I'm looking at his, and I'm just gonna tell you guys his stats. How many rushing yards he had in his 5 full seasons with the Seattle Seahawks. He had total yards 1,204, 1,590, 1,257, 1,306, and of course he regressed his net 29 with 417. But I will say this. Marshawn Lynch may not be the same 1,000-yard rusher he was in years past, but he definitely improved after a year or two off, because last year he had a remarkable 891 rush yards. And, well, that's not amazing. You're looking at his rushing, he had 12, 13 touchdowns in Seattle. He had 7 touchdowns last year, which is still respectable. That was only his rushing yards. His receiving yards last year was at 151, which is only a little bit worse than his 1,590 rushing 2012 season. In his touches, I mean, he got 317 touches his last year. His 338 touches in that remarkable year in 2012. He got 227. So I don't think it's a question of is he good. My question is can he be good enough? Like, it's not a question of can he be as good as he was, because the one guy that's been like such an enigma for me, and honestly, it's kind of aggravated me how much Derek Carr has been up and down. Like, it's kind of just really, really annoying, because I wish Derek Carr would just be one thing or the other, because at this point in my life, I cannot tell. At this point in his career, I cannot tell. You're looking at where he is. He was drafted 36th overall in the second round, so hype, but not a ton. Like, he was drafted just behind DeMarcus Lawrence and just ahead of Austin Seferian-Jenkins and LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan Matthews, like, and Paul Richardson. Like, it's not the most big names. I mean, Devontae Adams, but, like, not the hugest names is what I'm looking at over here. Although, I mean, I'm looking down the line, Jarvis Landry, Allen Robinson, Jimmy Garoppolo. But still, you're looking at all those guys. It's not as amazing of a class. It's just outside of this. It's just outside of the first round. So it's like a respected class, but not like where the hype train is heading. And then, so I'm looking at Mr. Derek Carr's stats, and he's had a couple magical years. He had a couple bad years. His best year was his breakout 2015 season. He had 32 touchdowns, just 13 interceptions. 13 interceptions is his high. But he did even better in 2016 season, a 4 touchdown decrease, but a 7 interception decrease. I'm looking at his QBR was okay. He's been great, but not something that you want to rush yourself behind, because so far this year in his 2 games so far up to this week, his first 2 games of the year, he's had 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. He said, he's not been the best. He of course threw for 3,987 yards in 2015, which I talked about. But the thing about Derek Carr is, like I said, he's not the guy that you think of when it comes to, he's the best. He is so consistent, because he may be in territory where people consider him a great quarterback, but the thing is, he's not consistent, because after those 3 good seasons after those 2 good seasons with 32 to 13 and 28 to 6 and touchdown interception ratio, last year he was still selected to the Pro Bowl because of probably the fan vote, but he had 22 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, which is not a very good rating. But I honestly think we'll see what he's going to do. He's got 3 interceptions first in 2 weeks, which isn't great. It isn't the worst ever, definitely. You look at some past Ryan Fitzpatrick games before now, but, Amari Cooper is the third guy I want to discuss, and then I'm going to talk about somebody who isn't there. I think you guys might be able to guess. But Amari Cooper, everybody was like, the big headlines with John Gruden was like, can he make Derek Carr great again? Can he make the Raiders good again? Whatever. Everybody is like, can he make Amari Cooper elite like he's supposed to be? Here's the thing. Amari Cooper was supposed to be the biggest star, because his first 2 years were remarkable. 1,070 yards in his rookie year, a sophomore surge with 1,153 yards his second year, 130 targets his first year, 2 more targets the second year, 16 games played in, 15 games started for his first year, 14 games started his second year, and then he completely fell off the map. His targets went down from Derek Carr. He played in only 14 games, started only 12, 680 yards. His touchdowns went up, but everything else went down. He rushed for more yards, but that doesn't really matter. He fumbled it once. He just did not do as well as he had done because of his yardage and just his overall play. Even though he had more touchdowns he had the most touchdowns he's ever had. In every other department, he had not done as well. And this year so far, he's only gotten 13 targets for 125 yards through 2 games. And no touchdowns thus far. Which is, obviously 2 games is a remarkably small sample size. But Derek Carr and Marshawn Lynch and Amari Cooper could all completely turn it around and flip all these stories by the end of next week, the year after that, whatever. But I don't know about Amari Cooper. He's not, just like kind of Derek Carr in a way, he hasn't proven to me that he can be a consistent elite guy every week and every year overall. I know I'm looking at simple stats here, but just stats do tell a bit of a story. And you know what? It's not telling a great one. He's still by the way, he's 24 years old. So he still has a while to go. But when you're drafted 4th overall in the 4th overall, they expect you to produce. So we'll see. Honestly, and they signed more guys. They signed Crabtree. They signed Martavis Bryant this past year. Oakland Raiders are not super confident in Amari, but he's got to do better if he wants to prove that the Raiders made the right call in drafting him 4th overall. And I do want to talk about, and I know this might be a touchy subject for any of the Raider fans out there that are like, I'm so excited to listen to this episode. Sammy's going to talk about how good the Raiders are, how under the radar they are, and I have. But sooner or later, I had to come to this. I got to talk about the defense, and the one guy that's not there. Yes, I'm sorry. I will have to say, Khalil Mack, who's one of the best defensive guys in the league, was traded from the Oakland Raiders to the Chicago Bears. And the Raiders' defense overall, by the way, was not too amazing to begin with. I'm looking at the notable guys. I mean, Bruce Irvin, Tahir Whitehead, I guess. I mean, these guys aren't even, like, I don't even know, I don't recognize any of these guys' names. The only guy that I recognize is Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, and he's their 3rd string guy. Like, man. On the other hand, I know this might be kind of dumb, but I do want to look at the fantasy defense rankings. According to ESPN.com, let's go with. Of course, the Jaguars are on top. And then the Eagles, Rams, Vikings, Ravens, Texans, etc., etc., etc. I'm going down. I'm trying to find the Raiders. Where are the Raiders on this, actually? Well, the Raiders are number 30 on this list. And this was updated. This was posted 23 days ago. So this was even before Khalil Mack. Or maybe it was like right after Khalil Mack was traded. So the Oakland Raiders' defense is currently considered by ESPN Fantasy as only better than the Jets' defense and the Colts' defense. And you know what? I'm looking at their depth chart. They might be right. I mean, first of all, I want to see their left defensive end, who is Frosty Rucker. He was signed in June 11th, probably to be a backup. Man, he has had he had 1.5 sacks last year. His best year was a few years ago. He had 5. His career high is 5 sacks. He's got 8, 9, 14, 17, 18 and a half career, 21 and a half career sacks. 1 career interception, and that was in 2009 when he was with the Bengals. He's played in 144 career games, so at least there's that. He had 23 tackles last year, which is not quite his career high. But he had 7 in 2016. I mean, he's respectable, but he's no Khalil Mack. Like, 0 fumbles. Oh, 8 forced fumbles. He forced 8 fumbles. But the last one was in 2016. Oof. How many did he recover? He recovered like 3 in his career. Like, guys, my point is, just like teams like the Bengals or the Jazz or even the Trailblazers or, the A's maybe in the wild card game, there's so many question marks and variables. Not the A's, but there's so many question marks and variables for the Oakland Raiders. And of course, I know they're gonna hate me even more. But the one thing I do have to talk about that's not a variable is the Las Vegas move. The Raiders are moving to Las Vegas, and right now, I'm looking at their stadium cam via Raiders.com. At least I'm trying to. Okay, so here it is. Looks like, what it looks like to me is that the lower bowl is kind of the lower bowl is sort of cars that are driving by. None of them are really paying attention to it. The lower bowl is up. The construction cranes are everywhere, of course. The parking lot is kind of set up. It's not that built up. But let's look at the rendering. I want to see what it's supposed to look like. This is the Raiders are coming. So it's called, when the Raiders will kick off in 2020. So it doesn't look so good, and it's supposed to kick off in 2020. The location was near the airport and adjacent to the Las Vegas Strip. That's true. This is what it says on the website. Near the airport and adjacent to the Las Vegas Strip, the location of the Las Vegas Stadium is optimal for both local and visiting guests. State-of-the-art retractable doors and a glass-domed roof offer the best of both worlds, an outdoor feel with a natural grass playing field and a comfortable climate, not to mention a stunning view. A sleek and seamless concept brings it all together, featuring a perfect design for crowd flow during game day and large-scale events. So it's supposed to, what it looks like in the rendering is basically on one side it's the airport and like a bunch of the desert, basically. On the other side is the strip and then more desert. Like, it's the strip, it's the stadium, and nothing else. And now it's showing me, this is actually a really nice website. If you go to Las Vegas Stadium at .raiders.com, it's got a very neat look. And it looks like the Raiders are going to have like a mini field outside of their stadium. It's going to be like a mini field outside of their stadium. There's going to be a bunch of signs and palm trees all around. It's sand and everything. And then there's a big like stadium, and then next to it is like Caesar's Palace or something. So, Oakland Raiders, here's the thing. Oakland Raiders season ticket members interested in, this is again from their website, interested in Raiders season tickets in the new Las Vegas Stadium should place a $100 Las Vegas Stadium PSL deposit if they have any interest in potentially purchasing Raiders season tickets for the new Las Vegas Stadium. Okay. I'm looking at all the frequently asked questions. None of them seem to be, why are the Raiders moving? And this is a very good question. Alright, one more quick rendering. So basically what I'm seeing here is the glass ceiling, a couple of nice scoreboards, a little window of sorts, glass window showing the strip, a big field, lots of decks, suites and everything. Looks very nice, honestly. Kind of open, but also kind of closed. Glass, open ceiling. There's a cauldron, Al Davis Memorial Torch. Unbelievable. Is in the rendering, actually. There's the torch. I see it's going to be, like, big. But basically what I'm saying is the Oakland Raiders, they're with the whole black hole and everything, they're mad fans. They're notoriously famous fans. They're notorious for being mad and everything. But bottom line, the Raiders are moving. And nobody in Oakland is happy about it. And I think I started talking about this last week, but the A's launched an ad campaign rooted in Oakland. But the Raiders have been Oakland's amazing favorite team for a long time. And people love them. And why they're leaving is, for one reason, money. Mark Davis. Man, Mark Davis does not want to do anything for Raiders fans. I mean, he wants to do things for Raiders fans while they're still in Oakland, but he's looking towards the future. He's looking towards Vegas. And Vegas, the good thing is, Vegas has been a rumor for a long, much like LA was before the Rams and the Chargers moved. The city of Las Vegas was a prominent rumored destination, and everybody is now worried about it. Will this be a success? Will this happen? The Raiders tried to do all these things. They tried to move to Levi's. They tried to make a new. They wanted to do a new stadium in Concord. Wanted to move to San Antonio. This is unbelievable. They wanted to do something with the A's. They wanted to be in LA, but instead they lost to the Rams. They tried one last time to get a new stadium in Oakland, but the Raiders ultimately decided to go to Vegas. And a lot of people are mad. But in the meantime, the Oakland Raiders fans are still coming, are still rooting. And everybody's wondering, can guys like Derek Carr, Marshawn Lynch, Amari Cooper, all these question marks, that terrible defense, can those pieces come together and win some football games, maybe even a Super Bowl, before the Raiders say goodbye? And everybody's saying no. But honestly, for the sake of the city of Oakland, I'm hoping the answer to that question is yes. And I think that's where we're going to leave the Raiders, at this weird crossroads, with a move with a lot of questionable players and a quest for one last Super Bowl title before they leave their very, very old home. And with that, I'd like to move on to our very, very last team of this week, which is a team that's actually under the radar in more ways than you can possibly imagine. The Cleveland Indians are my next team, and people might be wondering, by the way, why I saved the MLB for last. And that's because, first of all, MLB has been my strong suit and my passion, my number one sport for a long time. And also, the MLB postseason's coming up, and I kind of want to increase hype for that by closing every episode out with a team that's interesting and at a crossroads going into the playoffs, and if they're not making the playoffs next year. And so I do want to talk about the Cleveland Indians, and I think we should get right into it. The main knock against the Cleveland Indians, even though they're a very good team, is they have a weak division. And if you say that, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not wrong. The number 2 team, folks. Sorry, the number 2 team, folks, is the Minnesota Twins, who are, wait for it, 15 games back and are 71-83. The Detroit Tigers are 24 games back and tied in that third place. The Chicago White Sox are 61-93, and the very under the radar but also very terrible Kansas City Royals are 54-102. It's not. Let me see this. Okay, so it's pretty much not possible for any team other than the Indians. It's impossible for any other team other than the Indians to finish 500 higher in the AL Central. And I think that's honestly pretty sad for the AL Central. But it's also interesting because of their terrible division, nobody talks about the team that's on top, the team that's actually good in this division. Nobody actually talks about the Cleveland Indians. And the one thing that I thought was very interesting and a very under-the-radar move was the Indians' acquisition for 1 month of Josh Donaldson. Josh Donaldson, if you guys don't know him, he was a very, very elite third baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays for a long, long time. But over the past 2-3 years, he's kind of fallen off his perch. And the Indians wanted him, so they got him for like a month. Edwin Encarnacion, a similar situation, fell off his perch. The Indians picked him up. But what's even more unbelievable is that they're so good. They're actually really good. I'm looking at their depth chart right now. The acquisition of Josh Donaldson moved Mr. Jose Ramirez, who's also a very good third baseman. I believe he started in the All-Star game this year. To second base, which moves Jason Kipnis back to center field, which he's been great at for a good amount of time. Michael Brantley's in left field. Melky Cabrera, another under-the-radar acquisition, in right. And that moves guys that are very good, like Rajai Davis, Brandon Guyer, to the bench. And, of course, their first baseman and their shortstop, who I haven't mentioned yet, who are also very good. Their shortstop, of course, is still held by one of the best, if not the best, shortstop in the AL, possibly MLB, in Francisco Lindor, who has been amazing for them and really a low-key guy. Yonder Alonso was their first baseman. He was tremendous for the A's last year, and he was lured by a contract to Cleveland. This is, again, a prime Moneyball example for the modern era, folks. Their one interesting thing on the depth chart is Roberto Perez, their catcher, who is slotted ahead currently of Yan Gomes. I don't know why that is. I saw Yan Gomes; he's a good player. I don't know why he's benching him, but it's a funny story. I went to at all baseball games, the hecklers are usually like, "You suck," "F you," whatever. But this was very creative, but also this was very mean. This heckler said that he yelled at Yan Gomes that when he came up, Yan doesn't count as a name, which I found actually kind of funny, but also kind of weird because I don't know what that guy's name was. And if you've never heard that name before, they might say the same exact thing to you. So that's kind of mean, but I mean, it's an interesting little anecdote for you there. Their starting rotation is still dominated by Corey Kluber. Corey Kluber has again been low-key amazing this year. This year he's 19-7, 2.93 ERA, 31 starts, 31 games. 2 complete games is remarkable for. He's got 203 innings under his belt, 72 runs, 66 of them earned, only 25 home runs, 31 walks as opposed to 205 strikeouts. Has intentionally walked no one, so he's not afraid. .98 WHIP. His average against is 223. He's still been remarkable this year. He's had 24 quality starts for those in the more sophisticated stat head community. And then of course Carlos Carrasco, another guy like Derek Carr, who's kind of been off and on and off. A guy that has been pegged to be an elite starter, but has been okay some years and great others. And this year, he's somewhere in the middle. So far, 16-9, 30 games and 29 starts, 182 innings pitched, 74 runs, 21 home runs, 37 walks to 217 strikeouts, 240 averaged against, 1.11 WHIP. So still pretty respectable, a very good second starter. Mike Clevenger, who's been good this year, Trevor Bauer, Danny Salazar is currently not available again. And then their bullpen, who, by the way, everybody's talking about the Yankees bullpens, the A's bullpens as very good, interesting bullpens. But guys, the Indians bullpen is still something to be hugely afraid of, because I don't know if another very under the radar move was when the Indians acquired Brad Hand at the trade deadline. And Brad Hand is their closer now, and joins an already stacked bullpen that manager Terry Francona has mastered. Brad Hand adds to an already very stacked bullpen with Cody Allen, of course, the dominant Andrew Miller, Dan Otero, Adam Simber, another guy from that trade, I believe. Yes, another very good player. He's been great this year. Not as good with the Indians, but it was great with the Padres when he was traded. Josh Tomlin, a very good starter who's been in the bullpen. Is that all right? That's Neil Ramirez, who's good. Very, very, very stacked bullpen all around. And guys, the Indians are good enough. But this is all with Lonnie Chisenhall, one of their very good outfielders. He's on the DL. Danny Salazar's in the DL. Leonis Martinez, another very good outfielder, on the DL. They got some people. They're all on the 60-day DL. So the Indians, despite a few injuries and people not talking about them as much, they're still as good as ever and just a very, very good team. And people now with, even with the Browns and the Cavs, the Cavs have no more attention drawn to them because LeBron's gone. The Browns just won a game but are still disrespected. Cleveland should be, and I think is, baseball town right now. This team is very good, clinches early, wins often, has very easy schedule, with a very weak division, like I said. 40-32 at home. Not good, but still sends the fans home happy most of the time. These guys, people don't want to talk about them because they're in that weak division, and they're in that division that's not respected as much. But people should talk about them more. And then, of course, I wanted to kind of devote 10 minutes of that talking about how unfair, how stacked they are, and how people unfairly don't discuss them as much as they should. But the other thing I do want to talk about is something that's happening next year as opposed to this year. And I'm not talking about, the Indians World Series parade, because first of all, the AL is still, and I'm going to touch on this a lot, is very, very stacked. I talked about this last episode. The Yankees, the A's, if the Yankees, A's, Indians, Astros, and Red Sox all make the playoffs as they're projected to, then those are 5 elite American League teams in the playoffs. For the first time in a while, because the NL has been a dominant league, except in the All-Star game for a long time. The Cubs were the champions in 2016. The Giants, of course, with the Believe In. Every even year since, every even year since 2006. I just did that in my head. Every even year since 2006, the National League has won the championship. The National League team has won the World Series. But all that aside, the 2019 thing that I do want to discuss is, yes, the All-Star Game. The All-Star Game logo was released about a month and a half ago. It's basically, I can't describe it to you right now. It's basically, it's a baseball design. It's basically a guitar with the baseball design. It's very simple, but it's a very cool logo. I think it's very neat. You see the baseball and the rock and roll elements to it, and and they managed to get Cleveland 2019 All-Star Game, MLB, whatever. They managed to get everything in there, but they have the whole logo. And it's a very nice logo, I think. So yeah, this is how it's described on MLB.com. Cleveland is dubbed the birthplace of rock and roll and home to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So guitar at the center of the logo all seemed appropriate. The body of the guitar is stamped with red stitches and a white background to emulate a baseball with the All-Star Game title and the MLB logo across the neck. Yeah. Terry Francona is very excited about it, clearly. But the thing is, the Indians are. I think this might be. I don't know. This is a very big debate. It's either a cause or an effect of the All-Star Game. Probably both. The Indians that have an infamous Chief Wahoo logo, and if you guys don't know what it is, just look up Indians Chief Wahoo. It's basically this cartoon Indian person, and it's very weird, and I don't really like it that much, to be honest. But 2018 is the last time they'll be wearing it. And they've worn it a little less this year as opposed to last year. So basically, it probably has a lot to do with the 2019 All-Star Game. Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, has been pretty much trashing that Chief Wahoo logo for a long time, since 2015 when he became the commissioner. So in 2019, All-Star Game was awarded to Cleveland. People were like, wait a second, the Indians won't have to will host the game. They probably will scrap Chief Wahoo. The team name is staying the same, that's true. The Chief Wahoo merchandise will be up a little bit, but the Cleveland Indians will be instead going with their Block C, which I think is kind of terrible. It's basically exactly like it sounds. It's a Block C, and it looks terrible. It doesn't look terrible. It's just so bland and everything. But there are rumors of a secondary logo that they're getting. Maybe some sort of guitar-oriented logo, actually. Like, what if the Cleveland Indians, actually a great idea, what if the Cleveland Indians guys had a rock and roll-centered alternate uniform or logo? Like, I think that'd be so cool, like an Indian, or somebody strumming a guitar with the Block C in it or something. Wouldn't that be so cool? Like, maybe they wear it only on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction weekend or something. Yeah, I wonder if they've ever thought of that before. Actually, the rock and roll. But all that aside, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the 2019 All-Star Game. She'll be in Cleveland, so we'll see. I don't see anything that's... Yeah. So the Indians don't seem to have ever a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alternate uniform, which would be kind of, honestly, very, very cool. Which actually reminds me, guys, I would like to say this. I haven't really gotten anything, I don't think. But I do want to remind everybody that I have started something called the... that is called the Under the Radar mailbag. And what that essentially is you can email me with a question or comment about this week's episode, about next week's episode, who the teams, whatever, or just a question or comment you have in general for me. And you can email it to Under the Radar NSR, National Sports Radio, NSR, Under the Radar NSR at gmail.com. You can email me, and I will answer your questions or comments at the beginning of the show and talk about them for a bit. Or the end of the show. I haven't really quite figured out the format yet, but that's basically the big news. But, back to your regularly scheduled Cleveland Indians talk. They are doing the All-Star Game, so I think that'll be interesting. And they have that big They have that very stacked lineup, very stacked rotation, very stacked bullpen that could take them into the playoffs with what I think is a big three of Astros, Red Sox, Yankees. I mean, they're really all very good teams, but the Indians definitely do stand a chance. And if they make it to the World Series, they can probably win. Unless they're facing if they're facing a team like the Dodgers and the Cubs, they can probably sweep the World Series this year, guys. So I wanted to reserve a lot of time for this because I wanted to wrap up with a guy that, and guys, I think this episode is going to be a little shorter than an hour this week, but I do want to talk about a guy that I think has been taking the league by storm and definitely should be considered not as an under-the-radar guy now, but an under-the-radar guy much before it now, because this guy has been a fantasy sleeper for a long time, an underrated player for a long time, under the low-key fan favorite for a long time, a very good player for a long time. I want to talk about, no, that's full limit. I want to talk about Mr. Martin Carpenter, Matt Carpenter, number 13 for the St. Louis Cardinals, who this season, as of today, has hit 35 home runs. 35. Now, let me compare that to previous years. In previous years, he hit 23, 21, 28, 8, 11, 6, and 0. Those in reverse order. Those are the other home runs he's hit. He's been a guy relying on batting average in the past. And batting average has always been his strong suit, has always been the thing that has made him famous. 318, 272, 272, 271. All a very consistent guy. He always hit like 300 or whatever. At the beginning of the season, everybody would rumor him Silver Slugger. He's already won a Silver Slugger. He's already had 3 All-Star berths. I mean, he's been incredible for this team, and he won the Rookie of the Year in 2012. I mean, he's been amazing. Oh, he's hit 2294 and 318 in the past. 365, 392, 375, 365, 380, 384, 378, and OBP over the last few years. But really, this guy has become he's hit home runs in a kind of normal, just a few home runs every once in a while kind of thing. But now he's just been on an absolute tear. And he's been just unbelievable. 5 WAR this season. I mean, 77 RBIs. He has a 910 OPS. Better than his career mark, which is 848. He's been so incredible and so much better than he has in the past. And I honestly, not to toot my own horn, but I kind of saw this coming. Not the change in power, but a breakout year from this guy. Because Matt Carpenter is an incredible baseball player, but we don't know when he would show the whole world how good he could be. And at age 25, he showed us. He's a little over 25 and a half. But, he's gone far since his debut in 2011. I mean, I'm just so happy for him because he's been such a big part of the Cardinals' offense. Such a guy that he won a World Series in his first year with the team. He was a guy that had so much potential that everybody was talking about. And honestly, I think it's kind of fitting. This guy has been absolutely incredible. And folks, he's not stopping. I don't think he's stopping now. He's still got room to grow. And I think he's going to be a great guy. And I just do want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with the Oakland Raiders score. And, folks, the Raiders lost today to the Miami Dolphins. They let the Miami Dolphins score 3-0. They're currently 0-3. Can they be good again? Can they continue? Can the Oakland Raiders give the city of Oakland what it deserves before they apparently leave? Can the Portland Trailblazers get over the hump of a tough Western Conference? And can the Cleveland Indians show why they are truly one of the most, if not the most, under the radar team that I've had in the show so far? and probably the most under-the-radar team that I'll have for a long time. I'm just rooting for Cleveland Indians World Series ring this year, if not for my beloved Dodgers, because that would honestly be so fun. That's going to wrap it up for Under the Radar. I'm your host, Sammy Bovitz. Everybody, keep your eye out for the next Under the Radar teams out there. Keep emailing me, undertheradar@gmail.com. And just have a great day, night, week, year, etc., everyone. Alright, see you guys later. This is Sammy Bovitz signing off. Have a great day, everyone.